Excellence lives here in northeastern Indiana. It's reflected in more than 200 nationally recognized degrees. It drives our Division I sports. It's alive in our campus life. Excellence has a name, IPFW. Around our campus, around the country, around the world. Excellence lives here. Indiana University, Purdue University, Fort Wayne. One university, two great names.
This is Arts Weekly. Arts Weekly is presented by the College of Visual and Performing Arts at IPFW, offering degrees in fine arts, music, theater, and visual communication and design. IPFW, the energy of the arts.
Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to Arts Weekly. I'm Melinda Haynes with the IPFW College of Visual and Performing Arts. Today's show is about comedy and drama, and in the second half we'll get to the comedy part. But first, I'm joined by Thom Hofrichter, Managing Artistic Director of First Presbyterian Theater. First Pres is mounting Shakespeare's classic drama, Antony and Cleopatra, beginning April 25th, and there's a lot to talk about. Thom, it's good to have you here again.
Oh, thank you for having me back.
Well, before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of Antony and Cleopatra, I know that First Pres always does a Shakespeare play every year. Talk to me about that, why you do that.
Well, it's kind of Kate Black's fault. Back when I did my undergrad and I did my master's and I did a PhD, and I took Shakespeare every time, and he always left me cold. I was like, I think he's overrated. I don't know what's going on. And when I got here, kind of my philosophy at First Pres was, let's do the scripts by the great writers, because we are a church theater and it's talking about who we are as human beings, how do we interact, how do we connect with universal things. And Kate kept going, well, you say you want to do great theater, why don't you do Shakespeare? So after about 2 years, I thought, well, I kind of like Othello, I'll shut her up. And I did Othello. And what I realized, the reason I didn't like it in school, I wasn't really working hard enough. Once I started digging into the text, it's amazing. The man understood everything there was to understand about being human. Whether it's jealousy, whether it's ambition, whether it's love. He understood how love is funny, how love is tragic, how love can be this maniacal thing that controls you, how it can make you happy. He just understood all the facets of humanity. So after that first experience, I thought, I think I want to do this. And so I started doing it more and more. And the more I did it, the more I fell in love with it.
Now, have you only done the dramas, or
Oh,
have you
no, I think this is 13 or 14, so we're, we've done Twelfth Night, we've done Midsummer Night's Dream, we've done As You Like It. We haven't hit Hamlet yet, but we've done, I think after Antony and Cleopatra, we will have done all the major tragedies. Actually, we haven't done Lear, but I got to play Lear for IPFW a couple of years ago, so I'm counting that.
Right.
So Lear's hard. It's hard to stage. No, we're just kind of scrolling through Shakespeare. It's always the most work for me because there's so much textual analysis you have to do. But once you understand what the words are, oh my gosh, are they fun to say.
And getting into the language the first time you read it, just because it is just so different than how we speak today.
Yes.
But once you get into that, then you read it like you were reading the newspaper.
It's like any poetry. You have to take it. You have to slow down and take it apart and make sure you understand what all the words mean. And we are talking about a language that's 400 years old. So some of the things that meant one thing then don't mean the same thing now, and words disappeared from the language and things like that.
So it's really important to have the right actors in those roles to be able to convey that meaning rather than just the words.
And I mean, because I think another reason why a lot of people, and myself, was kind of cold on Shakespeare is I'd seen a lot of productions of Shakespeare where people tried to make Shakespeare better by acting harder. Nothing is worse than watching somebody for 2 hours try to do Shakespeare where they don't fundamentally know what the language means. The language communicates all.
If you can't interpret it, then the audience isn't going to understand.
Antony Cleopatra was done in 1986 by Anthony Hopkins and Judi Dench. And Peter Hall, there's a book about the putting together of that. And the first thing that Peter Hall starts talking about is, it's all about the words. It's not about the emotions, it's about the words. Communicate everything through the words. And he's right, and we've been working really hard to understand the words, and I think we're headed to a good place. I think when people come to see Shakespeare at First Pres, they understand what is going on.
Well, and that's so key. I mean, I remember the first time I ever saw The Taming of the Shrew, where it really came to life for me, where you understand it and you get the jokes, and you're like, oh, you know, almost like the light comes on.
Well, and I take a bus to Stratford every year, and the other thing is I try to convince people, forgive yourselves, because when I watch Shakespeare that I'm not familiar with, I don't know every single word. I lose maybe 5–10%. But what's actually going on, the beauty of the language really does carry the play.
Yeah. Now, Antony and Cleopatra, give me not just an introduction, but tell me the plot. And
Romeo and Juliet for old people.
Okay.
I mean, in some
ways,
a
nutshell.
Once I started getting into it, because we always think of Romeo and Juliet, when most of us know that, are these wild, impetuous kids who don't think about their actions. And if they were just more mature, they would think about this love, and it wouldn't ruin their lives. Well, here we go. Historically, I think Cleopatra was 38 and Antony was around 48. There was an age difference. But they behave like like Romeo and Juliet. They both are so possessed by this love that they don't pay attention to what's going on around them, the political circumstances, the fact that each of them are leaders of the world, and they kind of ignore their jobs. And it's this the reason it's a tragedy for me is I think all of us want to have that kind of love relationship. We want that passion, but that passion destroys. And Shakespeare understood that kind of a love, I mean, it made Mark Sanford basically leave the governor's mansion and disappear to Argentina for a while. And not to pick on Republicans, it made Bill Clinton do some ridiculous things. We behave so stupidly.
And Shakespeare's capturing that.
Yes, when we have that passion. And yet all of us look at Antony and Cleopatra and in some ways are kind of envious and jealous because we want that passion in our life. But so Shakespeare understood.
Well, and who was Cleopatra? And how did she leave this legacy? What did she do?
Part of who Cleopatra is in myth. I mean, we're really not sure. We're talking about 2,000 years ago, a little over 2,000 years ago. And there's a new biography by Stacy Schiff that tries to unearth who she really was, because for the last 500 years of studying the world, when universities came back in fashion in the 1500s, what we did is we took the Roman writers and we took their word for it. Well, the Romans had an edge to grind, a sword to grind. Yeah, axe to grind. That's the weapon I'm looking for. Because she kind of helped bring Julius Caesar down. Pompey, who was another world leader, and Mark Antony, the three great men of that time, of 30 to 50 BC, were her lovers. And Romans did not like, she ran the country. Egypt was incredibly prosperous while Rome was grinding itself into poverty with a civil war by always fighting each other. She was kicking out lots of money and she was supporting people. She was very smart about using money to set up political allegiances. It's a fascinating read, but she really was a woman. I mean, Margaret Thatcher just died, and we think of other women who have led strong women who lead countries. But I think Margaret Thatcher only really hot too.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people think of Elizabeth Taylor in the movie, and they think, ooh,
I think I'm going to have to see that movie after we open, because a lot of people have asked me that, and I really don't know. I know that it's not Shakespeare's text.
Right.
I know that it's a Hollywood movie that's probably written by a Hollywood writer, and I would bet that it probably, in some ways, Shakespeare's a little like this too. It focuses on her as kind of a sexual kitten. But I don't know. I haven't seen the movie.
It's just a lot of people have that image. So tell me about your actors in this show.
I have Scott Hess, who's an IPFW graduate. He, when I played Lear out here, he was Edgar, and he was Hotspur for us in Henry IV. He's a terrific young actor who I think we're getting his last Fort Wayne appearance. He's hopefully headed out to I see him up there on the screen right now. He's headed out to LA to try to make a living. Rebecca Fawdry, who has done quite a few shows for us. This is her first dip into Shakespeare, which for me is exciting. We have a lot of people who they're like, oh no, I could never do Shakespeare. It's like, yeah, come on,
give it
I'll
a
help
try.
you, we'll play.
Yeah.
And after they do it once, they can't wait to do it again.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a wonderful cast.
Well, and that set design, there were a few pictures there, very up and down and steps. I mean, tell me a little bit about how that works.
By committee, myself and I've been really lucky this year. Bob Sutton is an old friend of mine back at the Civic in 1981. Yeah. 30 plus years ago, I played Lenny to his George in Of Mice and Men. And Bob was an actor in New York for about 30 years. He came back to retire, and I got him he's now our tech director. So what we do is we get together and we start drawing, and we show each other our drawings. And I knew that Shakespeare always has dozens of locations, so you don't want to try to show them all.
Right.
You want a nice space that you can put pleasing pictures on as a director that kind of evoke a sense. And the sense we were looking for were sand dunes and tents and kind of a barrenness of Egypt.
So the up and down, the stage, the stairs, that's going to work
if
for.
you look at it, the one side is very orderly, which are the Romans, and the other side is very chaotic, which was Cleopatra's Egypt.
Well, that is going to be a wonderful production. Tell me again when it opens.
We have a preview on the 25th, and that's at 7:30, and then we play Fridays and Saturdays at 7:30 until May 11th, and we do one Sunday matinee for our plays, and that comes on the middle weekend this time, which is May the 5th.
Okay, and I think we've got all the information on the screen for
right,
tickets. So
yep,
tickets
absolutely.
are available now. Playing
and
at
if
First
any of
Pres.
this, firstpresbyteriantheater.com, easy to remember, firstpresbyteriantheater.com. Go there and you can find out everything you need to know about our theater.
Downtown on Wayne Street.
Absolutely, right in the heart of Fort Wayne.
Well, Thom, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I love talking to you.
While we get ready for our next segment, please take a minute to view our performance calendar of what's coming up in our area. You also can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'll be right back with Kelly Updike of the Embassy Theater.